Emmanuel Hostin, the husband of The View host Sunny Hostin, has been accused of widespread insurance fraud, and Sunny basically admitted to it on camera. Let's talk about it.
Like my husband, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all.
Sunny Hostin just got served by the justice system and by Gutfeld and Timpf. It's not every day your husband's $450 million fraud case becomes headline gold, but Sunny's misfortune is Greg and Kat's comedic jackpot. Gutfeld came in swinging like a stand-up comic with subpoena flair, while Kat Timpf sliced through the drama with sarcasm sharp enough to cross-examine. Her husband's alleged offshore antics? Fuel for a roast hotter than a mistrial in July. If Irony had a talk show, this would be the pilot. And by the time they're done, you won't know if you need a lawyer or just a laugh track.
Nah, you look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow.
Sunny Hostin probably started her day thinking it was business as usual. Ascend the View throne, sip her latte of moral superiority, and rain down judgment like Zeus with a law degree. But plot twist. Karma didn't just knock, it served papers. While she was busy doling out lectures on ethics like she's the human embodiment of a Harvard syllabus, the universe decided to flip the script. Enter headlines hotter than her righteous indignation. Her husband? Now starring in a $450 million fraud scandal so massive it makes Bernie Madoff look like a kid caught stealing lunch money. Suddenly, that moral high ground started to look more like quicksand.
And I just want to hit myself in the face so I can feel something. You know, it's like so boring. He's like, yeah, I like Instacart, but don't worry, I tip the poors. But, you know, Joy, you actually don't like Instacart and you do like the store. And then Joy is like, yeah, I do. I like to go to the store. I like to walk around and see what's at the store, what I do want, what I don't want. Maybe I want tuna fish, and I just want to hit myself in the...
And Greg and Kat? Oh, they feasted. Gutfeld came in swinging like a chef with a vendetta, slicing through the scandal with the precision of someone who seasons his sarcasm with a PhD in petty. He didn't just deliver punchlines. He plated them like a five-star meal, garnished with irony and served with a knowing smirk. And Kat? She didn't even need a knife. One glance at the headline, and she cackled like someone who's been waiting in the wings, armed with a mental Rolodex of hypocrisy, just counting down to this karmic buffet.
It's about the view. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. You know, it's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth and when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're an honest scum.
This wasn't a scandal. It was poetic justice in stilettos. And Kat Timpf was front row, popcorn in hand, watching the fall of Mount Virtue one contradiction at a time. The righteous indignation Sunny dishes out daily? suddenly tasting a bit stale when your husband's finances read like a Netflix docuseries pitch, and while The View tried to spin it like a minor hiccup in an otherwise flawless choir of morality, Greg and Kat weren't buying it. They were too busy highlighting the irony with a highlighter so thick it bled through the script. Because if you're going to lecture the world from a moral high horse, you better make sure it's not paid for with allegedly embezzled funds and offshore shell companies.
The witch's coven finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Gladys.
They said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he? Well, really, who is he?
I don't watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
No. Next, Joy's going to say she's never heard of carbs. Seriously, her denial of knowing me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch and Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's moo-moo.
And now, that pulpit she preached from is sinking faster than her husband's defense strategy. Greg turned every self-righteous monologue she's ever delivered into a boomerang, and it came flying back with a vengeance. He didn't just throw shade, he dimmed the entire studio. Meanwhile, Kat, with the grace of a sniper in stilettos, kept the hits coming. She quipped that if The View wanted to rebrand, they should rename it The Indictment Hour, where the hypocrisy is piping hot and the fact-checking is mysteriously absent. Together, they transformed the segment into a comedy roast meets courtroom drama, where Sunny's credibility wasn't just questioned, it was subpoenaed, cross-examined, and left sobbing in the witness box.
All right, Kat, did you ever see such a group? It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys.
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines.
Sunny Hostin was watching her whole moral empire collapse faster than a View panelist, attempting to explain the stock market. Greg Gutfeld strutted through the wreckage with the confidence of a cat who had knocked over a priceless vase and then blamed the dog for it. You could almost hear him purring with satisfaction as he expertly delivered each line, knowing this was a roast for the ages. Kat Timpf, meanwhile, was living for the chaos. She didn't even flinch as she leaned back with her trademark half smirk, the kind that said, "Oh, this is going to be a masterpiece." It was like watching someone savor the sweet, sweet moment when a house of cards starts to fall. No rush, just pure enjoyment of the destruction. Sunny, who had made a career out of playing the moral superior, was now the latest example of why the holier-than-thou act never lasts. Kat, ever the cynic, pointed out that all those years of her so-called ethical high ground were now exposed for what they truly were, a long-running cosplay. No more pretending, no more lectures. Reality had shown up with a clipboard and a plan for accountability. And just to add insult to injury, Kat even threw in a suggestion for The View's next segment, financial crimes and finger-wagging. Because what's more fitting than a half-baked guide to trying to have it both ways while your own moral failings crash down around you?
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
Greg, never one to be outdone, suggested that Sunny's next View appearance should feature one of those spinning game show wheels. Today's hot topic: fraud, privilege, or selective outrage. Spin to find out what we're ignoring today. The idea was pure comedic gold, and Greg delivered it with a smirk that could have melted glaciers. Meanwhile, you could practically hear the chaos backstage, like a live-action soap opera tangled with a crisis PR seminar led by interns. Visualize it, cards being burned, teleprompters glitching from the sheer cognitive dissonance, and producers frantically whispering into their earpieces, "For the love of ratings, somebody please bring up Meghan Markle." Anything. Just distract from the $450 million scandal crashing through our glass house of televised morality. And speaking of The View's co-hosts, the irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. The same panel who could sniff out a GOP parking violation from 1,000 miles away suddenly turned into champions of privacy when one of their own was caught up in a multi-million-dollar fraud case. Their message? Let's focus on love and light today. Translation. We hired a lawyer, and we're avoiding this like it's a Joy Behar monologue. Greg, of course, could barely hold back his delight. The scandal was like handing a flamethrower to a guy who was already juggling fireworks. And Kat? Well, she was enjoying every second of it, like she was watching her favorite reality TV finale. Except in this version, the fake houseplants were suing for defamation.
No, I'm also not surprised that there's one part of the video from the show yesterday that you left out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can we roll that, please?
I don't watch the show that much, but I've seen it.
Who is that?
Who is that?
Greg Gutfeld's one of the hosts of The Five, who, if I don't have anything nice to say, I generally don't say anything at all. I would just say this, his show should be called Kat Timpf, not Gutfeld, because she's the funny one on it.
Somebody's flirting with little Kat over here.
Well, she's the Republican one at the table, but I just think as a libertarian, I'm always looking to find common ground with other people because nobody really shares my politics. So I find some common ground in The View where she thinks I'm funny and I agree.
There you go.
They knew this wasn't just a Sunny Hostin meltdown. It was an entire media ecosystem tripping over its own smugness, face-planting right into a pit of its own platitudes. As The View spiraled into damage control, Gutfeld and Kat cranked their sarcasm engines to full throttle. Because when your show functions as a sanctimony factory and one of the founding members gets caught up in a fraud case, it's not just a credibility loss. No, you lose the moral GPS entirely. And in Sunny's case, it looked like her coordinates had been recalibrated to avoid Accountability Boulevard, taking a sharp left turn onto Deflection Lane. By this point, Greg and Kat weren't simply criticizing a talk show. No, they were poking at a bloated, gasping balloon of elite hypocrisy just to hear it wheeze out the last few puffs of self-righteousness. And America? America was watching, popcorn in hand, front row seats secured, eagerly waiting to see how The View would spin this one without accidentally inventing an entirely new genre of fiction. Gutfeld, of course, took it one step further. He didn't just laugh at the situation, he turned it into a masterclass in accidental self-parody. He called out The View's weekly sermon about how the right is corrupt, greedy, and basically evil incarnate. But here we are, watching Sunny's financial fairy tale crumble into a courtroom drama.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist. You see?
And the best part? The sheer volume of the alleged fraud. This wasn't a parking ticket or a misfiled tax return. No, this was the kind of number that makes Wall Street CEOs nod in evil appreciation. Kat, never one to miss an opportunity to expose media hypocrisy, pointed out how The View had somehow skipped over their own co-host's scandal with none of the fire and fury they usually reserve for, say, a conservative sneezing in the wrong tone. No panel discussion, no dramatic music stings, just a quiet shuffle to the next topic as if a $450 million fraud case was a minor wardrobe malfunction. Imagine if this had been anyone on the right. Meghan McCain would have been tied to a stake and burned live on ABC. Greg, ever cheeky, couldn't help but draw comparisons. It was as if irony had packed its bags, moved to Manhattan, and bought a front row ticket to The View. Kat added the cherry on top, Sunny's apparent silence. No grand speeches, no heartfelt soliloquies about how justice would prevail. Just crickets.
You know who just stunk up The View. The Bidens joined The View this morning for the entire hour. The audience was caught off guard, but knew something was up when they saw a dozen Secret Service agents and 2 embalmers. There were a few awkward moments, though, when a confused Joe asked if he could bid on the showcase. But was he surprised Kamala lost?
Meanwhile, Greg turned his sarcasm dial to 11 and practically melted the circuitry. It was less commentary and more performance art, the kind where irony wears tap shoes and dances across every ounce of Sunny's sanctimony. He didn't suggest a GoFundMe for legal defense. Please, that would be far too cliche. No, he proposed something way more practical, a nationwide popcorn fund. Because let's face it, this saga had all the makings of a box office hit, and the American public deserved front row snacks while watching the sanctimonious ship take on water. And just when you thought the roast was done, he turned the heat up. Sunny's next career move? Forget law, forget daytime TV. There's clearly a publishing deal in her future, a literary masterclass in contradiction. The hypocrisy didn't just leak, it marinated. Here was a woman who spent years building a public persona based on sanctimony and legal expertise, while apparently living in a home where the financial documents had more plot twists than an M. Night Shyamalan movie. And what did The View do in response? A group hug and collective amnesia. Because accountability, like common sense, is in short supply over there. Kat, never one to let the absurdity pass without fireworks, reminded everyone of the last time The View turned a minor conservative gaffe into a week-long ethics seminar.
Amazing. Oh. That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years. They're turning on me. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by The View's gravitational pull.
But 450 million? Hey, let's circle back to Fashion Week, she joked. She even suggested they rename the show The Skew for its ability to twist anything uncomfortable into a round table of eye rolls and softball questions. Greg, ever the showman, concluded with the ultimate hypothetical. Imagine if I or Kat were even tangentially connected to a fraud case of that scale. We'd be canceled faster than Joy Behar forgets she's supposed to let people finish a sentence. It's true, the double standard wasn't just showing, it was doing cartwheels down Broadway. And let's not forget, this isn't the first scandal to orbit The View. No, this place is like a magnet for public blunders wrapped in righteous packaging. But this one took the cake, baked it with irony, and served it on a silver platter of schadenfreude. Greg and Kat didn't just eat it, they turned it into a 6-course meal of mockery, garnished with a side of, "we told you so." But what made their takedown particularly delicious wasn't the volume, it was the surgical precision. They didn't need to yell or rant, they just highlighted the glaring absurdity of a moral crusader caught in a net woven from everything she's ever warned us about.
Kat, how many co-hosts has The View had since it first started? I've lost count. I don't know any of these people.
No, that's because they don't stick around long enough. There have been 17 since 1997. That's a lot. That's because they're women.
Oh, really?
Their hormones, they're changing their minds. I don't want to work here. Yes, I do. That's why. Women are always changing jobs every day.
Wow,
I just quit.
Direct the mail to Catherine Timpf. Not me. I disavow everything she just said.
And The View? Well, they just kept spinning in circles, hoping the storm would pass. Spoiler, it won't. Not while people like Gutfeld and Timpf have microphones and fully functioning sarcasm receptors. The real takeaway here isn't just the scandal, it's what it reveals about the ecosystem of smugness that is The View. A place where accountability is outsourced, double standards are imported, and reality is spun like it's on a cable news washing machine cycle. While Sunny's legal team is presumably doing yoga to stay calm, the rest of us are just here for the comedy. Greg and Kat did what they always do best. Expose the hypocrisy, laugh in its face, and serve it back to us with the kind of flair that makes even the scandal feel like a sitcom. Except this time, the sitcom comes with a court date and a $450 million plot twist. In the end, The View may try to carry on like nothing happened, but thanks to Greg and Kat, this story has been permanently carved into the Hall of Hypocrisy, framed under the bold headline, Sunny Side Fraud. And no matter how much makeup, lighting, or spin The View throws on it, the facts and the jokes aren't going anywhere. You better believe Greg and Kat will be right there when the sequel drops.